Picking up with the small intestine, because last time we went over the how food travels through the esophagus into the stomach, and now we're moving on to the intestine or the small intestine. So the peristalsis in the stomach. Remember, peristalsis is like a wave-like contraction of of muscles. So there's peristalsis in the esophagus as it's pushing the food down. And there's also some peristalsis that occurs in the stomach when it pushes it into the small intestine. So it pushes us through the pyloric sphincter that's at the junction of the stomach and the small intestine. And then in the small intestine, the food will mix with secretions from the accessory organs like the pancreas, liver, and gallbladder, and it moves through the tube. So once the tube passage is complete, most of the nutrients and water will have been absorbed. The small intestine has a lot of surface area for absorption of the nutrients and water because the epithelial tissue is covered with projections called villi, which have even smaller projections called microvilli. And because the each villus contains blood vessels and lymphatic vessels like the lacteal, the nutrients are able to pass quickly from the epithelial cells into the body's transport system. So here you can see a close-up. So this is a cross-section of the small intestine. And so these folds are facing inward. And so you can see, so this is a fold here. On the fold, these tiny little projections are the villi. And then if you zoom into one of these to one of the villi or one villus, you can see that they have the microvilli on top of each cell. So this would be like simple columnar epithelial tissue. And on top of each one, you would see microvilli. And here you can see the blood vessels that run through each villus. You have arteries and veins, and then you also have the lacteal, which is a lymphatic vessel that absorbs fats or lipids, that is. So just having all of these folds is what gives the small intestine that high surface area that makes it easier for nutrients to be absorbed and go into the bloodstream. So when solutes from digested material are absorbed into the epithelium of the small intestine, the water will follow it through osmosis because water moves from a place of low concentration, from a place of high concentration to a place of lower concentration. And so this is an important mechanism for absorbing water that has been ingested and also reclaiming liquid that was secreted into the digestive tract, like in saliva, mucus, or pancreatic fluid. So there's large amounts of water, and almost all of the nutrients are absorbed before the digestive material moves on to the large intestine. And so here, feces are formed by absorbing the additional water and also compacting the waste. So this occurs in the colon, which is the main section of the large intestine. So like in humans, you have like the ascending colon, the transverse colon, and then the descending colon. So that's where it takes place. And so the feces are held in the rectum in the final part of the large intestine where they're eliminated. And so just to show you some of the variation that exists in different animals. So in insects, the hindgut is the one that reabsorbs the water and ions, and then it excretes the uric acid and feces. And in other vertebrates like fishes, these animals have no large intestine. So they have a stomach and then they have an intestine that's pretty much the same size. So there's no difference, like there's no small and large. It's just the same size throughout. And some herbivorous vertebrates, the cecum, which is a blind sac at the anterior end of the large intestine, is enlarged. So these would be animals like some mice or horses, rhinos, things like that. So so they're similar to the ruminants that we went over, but these are called hindgut fermenters because that fermentation occurs in the cecum, whereas the ruminants, that was taking place in the stomach. So there is a difference. And then there's also some mammals that excrete pellets that they re-ingest to absorb additional nutrients. So this is called coprophagy. So animals like rabbits do this, or koalas, they also do that. And in humans, the narrow pouch called the appendix emerges from the cecum, and this is um, the function of the appendix is not really known because it has no obvious function. Since when you remove it, there's no there's no obvious effects that it has, but it is thought to house important microorganisms, so beneficial bacteria and protists. And so, because they house those important microorganisms, when you have, issues like diarrhea and you flush a lot of those out, those microorganisms that are held or housed in the appendix can repopulate your large intestine, which is beneficial to you. Okay, so that's going to be it for chapter 41. So this would be the last lecture that I'm going to upload. Okay. And this will be all the material that is going to be covered on the exam.